For centuries, Earth had existed on the fringes of galactic affairs, isolated from the vast network of advanced civilizations that populated the stars. With limited technological advancement compared to other galactic powers, humanity's existence seemed insignificant in the grand cosmic order. While other species had long since mastered space travel, advanced weaponry, and energy systems beyond Earth's comprehension, humans were still struggling with their own internal conflicts, managing their global resources and trying to make sense of their place in the universe. To the galactic empires, Earth was nothing more than a small, unremarkable world. Earth's limited scope, both technologically and politically, made it an easy target for those looking to expand their influence across the stars. It was a backwater planet, isolated and largely unnoticed in the cosmic scale. The great civilizations of the galaxy, such as the Solari Dominion, the Klath Federation, and the Verek Ascendancy, had long kept to their own affairs, unaware of Earth's presence, or simply not caring. Humanity lived in relative peace within their own borders, not yet knowing the depth of the danger that lurked beyond their atmosphere. They were unaware of the vast, often dangerous powers that held dominion over countless planets in the galaxy. The idea of interstellar conflict was as foreign to them as life on other planets, and they had no reason to believe that their peaceful existence was under any serious threat. Earth's status was one of unaware ignorance. Their advancements in space exploration had only reached the edges of their solar system, and their military technology was still in the early stages of modernization, relying on conventional arms and basic space defense systems. Humanity's reliance on outdated technology and defense systems made them ripe for conquest, but for now, they lived in the illusion of safety, until that safety was violently torn away. The Axlian Empire, a powerful galactic force known for their brutal conquests, had been quietly observing Earth for years, aware of the growing power within their ranks. The Axlian Empire was a multi-planetary species united under a single iron fist and had been expanding their territory for centuries. Their fleet, composed of massive warships and advanced weaponry, had wiped out entire civilizations in their quest for dominance. To them, Earth was nothing more than a primitive world, a planet full of insignificant beings who could offer little resistance to their might. The Axlian leadership, under the rule of Emperor Korith, believed that Earth's humble origins would make it an easy conquest. They viewed humanity as weak, undeveloped, and fragile, with no capacity to mount any real defense. In their eyes, humanity was nothing more than a footnote in the galaxy's grand history. The idea of humans resisting their domination seemed laughable, especially given the immense technological superiority they possessed. The Axlian Empire had never encountered a species like humanity before, one that had no intergalactic alliances or advanced weaponry, and yet they failed to realize that human ingenuity and resilience would prove to be their greatest obstacle. Emperor Korith underestimated the human spirit, dismissing it as something that would quickly crumble under the weight of their overwhelming military might. The Axlian fleet arrived in Earth's orbit like a shadow, descending from the darkness of space with terrifying precision. The alien warships, colossal in size and unmatched in firepower, cast a dark pall over the planet, blocking out the sun as they positioned themselves over key strategic locations on Earth. Earth's outdated defenses, once the pride of humanity's military, were swiftly neutralized by the advanced technology of the Axlian fleet. Within hours, the first strikes were launched, orbital bombardments that rained down on Earth's military bases, cities, and civilian centers. The Taranth Dominion, which had been Earth's greatest adversary just weeks earlier, was nothing compared to the sheer, overpowering force of the Axlian onslaught. Energy beams, plasma cannons, and kinetic strikes tore through the planet's surface, leaving behind only devastation and fear. Humanity's defenses were completely obliterated before they even had a chance to respond. The opening blow of the Axlian Empire's attack was swift, merciless, and total. Earth's military was overwhelmed, its air defenses shattered, and its space fleets rendered useless. For the first time, humans realized they were facing an adversary whose technology made them seem utterly helpless. The initial reaction on Earth was one of complete shock and disbelief. People had heard the stories of war among the stars, of powerful empires and spacefaring civilizations, but they had never imagined themselves as part of that galactic struggle. Now, faced with a force they could not comprehend, the world plunged into chaos. Humanity had spent centuries developing technologies for peaceful purposes, not preparing for an invasion from a force with superior technology and unmatched firepower. Cities burned, military bases were vaporized in the blink of an eye, the shock waves of the attack rippled across the globe, and the global government struggled to coordinate any form of defense. Leaders, once proud of their standing in the world, were now paralyzed by fear, and the realization that Earth's defenses were inadequate to stop the Axlian Empire. As the Axlian fleet hovered above Earth, the only option humanity had was to run, to seek refuge underground and prepare for the inevitable. The governments were forced into disarray, with no plan or leadership to unify the scattered remnants of Earth's military. The people of Earth were scared, confused and lost, with no idea how to defend themselves against such a devastating enemy. The initial response from Earth was chaos, but as the Axlian forces launched their attack, something began to stir deep within humanity. Amid the destruction and fear, small pockets of resistance began to form. Earth's leaders, though dazed and broken by the initial attack, started to regroup, realizing that surrender was not an option. Humanity, despite its initial fear, was not ready to give up. This was the beginning of a battle that would define Earth's place in the galaxy and humanity's unwillingness to be subdued by any force, no matter how mighty. The Axlian Empire wasted no time. After their initial arrival in Earth's orbit, their overwhelming superiority was evident. The alien fleet, numbering in the hundreds, spread across the sky, casting an eerie shadow over Earth. The Axlian warships dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Massive, monolithic vessels, each with advanced weaponry and energy shields, began their assault without mercy. Humanity had long since invested its resources into peaceful exploration and earthbound defense, assuming that the true dangers of the universe were far removed from Earth's quiet corner of space. The sudden appearance of the Axlian fleet with its superior weapons made Earth's orbital defense systems obsolete within hours. The planet's satellite defense grids were disabled as the Axlian ships launched focused energy beams at key communication hubs and military satellites, rendering Earth blind and defenseless. The first attack was swift and ruthless, an unmistakable declaration of the Axlian Empire's power. The orbital shields that Earth had constructed to protect against small asteroid impacts and minor interstellar threats were no match for the sheer devastating energy of the Axlian weaponry. They disintegrated in seconds. The main military outposts around the planet, designed to defend against low-level offensive operations, were destroyed in a matter of minutes. The Axlian fleet unleashed an onslaught of energy pulses, plasma storms, and kinetic strikes, overwhelming the defenses with sheer brute force. The initial shock left the human forces reeling. There was no time for strategy, no time to mobilize Earth's defenses crumbled under the weight of the Axlian invasion. Cities like New York, London, and Moscow, once pillars of human civilization, were turned into smoldering ruins. The Taranth Empire's fleet, which had posed a significant threat months before, was nothing compared to the Axlians' unrelenting power. The sheer scale of the destruction was beyond comprehension. The Axlian fleet's first strike had been designed to annihilate Earth's military and communication systems, ensuring that humanity would be too disoriented to retaliate effectively. The orbital defense platforms, which had once been humanity's pride, fired back in vain, their weapons too slow and too weak to penetrate the Axlian shields. Cities fell in a matter of hours. The Axlian forces targeted the most densely populated areas, as well as key military installations. The nuclear silos in the western United States were obliterated, and the underground military bunkers that were supposed to house Earth's final line of defense were reduced to rubble. The global communication network was wiped out, leaving governments and military leaders blind to the full scope of the attack. The world was thrown into chaos, with cities turned to dust and large parts of Earth left in panic. The tactical superiority of the Axlian fleet became apparent as Earth's defenses crumbled. The Axlian ships systematically decimated Earth's bases one by one, cutting off any attempts at counteroffensive operations. General Noah Jansen, the head of Earth's military forces, could only watch helplessly as the alien invaders wiped out his forces. Every plan he had drawn up, every strategic move he had anticipated, became meaningless in the face of the Axlians' overwhelming might. The first significant loss Earth faced was not just in terms of human lives, though those losses were immeasurable. It was a psychological blow. Earth's military leaders were used to being the protectors of their world, but against an enemy like the Axlian Empire, they were simply outclassed. The entire world was caught off guard, and the grief and panic quickly spread. The cities were lost, millions of people died in the initial wave of attacks, and entire countries were thrown into disarray. The Axlian fleet was too powerful, and humanity had no experience facing an adversary with such advanced technology. Military forces, once proud and strong, collapsed in the face of such force. General Jansen, a seasoned leader, felt the weight of his responsibility bearing down on him as his forces were obliterated. But despite these early setbacks, humanity's resilience began to show. The initial wave of devastation did not destroy the spirit of the human race. Survivors began to gather, and in the face of this overwhelming threat, something stirred inside humanity. General Jansen, although deeply affected by the loss of his forces, vowed to fight back. The message he sent across Earth's surviving military channels was simple. We may have lost the first round, but we are far from done. We will never surrender. Despite the crushing defeat, small pockets of resistance began to form across Earth. Humanity's resolve hardened. Earth was not finished, even though it had just suffered the worst defeat in its history. As Earth grappled with the aftermath of the Taranth Empire's initial assault, the stage was set for new leaders to rise. General Noah Jansen, the leader of Earth's defense, became the symbol of resistance. Having led humanity's forces in battle for years, his leadership had been the backbone of Earth's strategic defense. But now he was faced with a task more difficult than anything he had ever imagined. The devastating attack on Earth's defenses had left him reeling, but Jansen was not one to give up. He began organizing the surviving military units into guerrilla forces, knowing full well that Earth's only chance for survival lay in small tactical operations rather than facing the full might of the Axlian Empire head-on. Jansen's leadership would be tested like never before as he began to rally the resistance and prepare for the long fight ahead. Another key figure who rose to prominence was Dr. Sophia Chen, a leading scientist with a background in alien technology. Unlike General Jansen, Dr. Chen had no prior combat experience, but her expertise in scientific research and reverse engineering became critical in humanity's efforts to understand the Axlian fleet's technology. As the war raged on, Dr. Chen's work would become the foundation of Earth's counteroffensive. Dr. Chen's first breakthrough came when she discovered the basic principles behind the Axlians' energy shields, a discovery that would eventually allow humanity to reverse engineer their technology and develop their own countermeasures. In the aftermath of Earth's devastating loss, pockets of resistance began to emerge. The Axlian Empire, believing their victory to be inevitable, had underestimated humanity's resolve. While Earth's military was shattered, humanity's spirit was not so easily crushed. Across Earth, the survivors of the initial onslaught, those who had escaped the destruction, began to form small guerrilla groups. These resistance cells, led by civilians, military survivors, and scientists, used whatever weapons they could scavenge. Though they were outgunned and outmanned, these small bands of humans found ways to strike back at the Axlian invaders in clever and unexpected ways. They didn't have the luxury of advanced military tech, but what they lacked in firepower, they made up for with resourcefulness and determination. As cities burned and Axlian warships dominated the skies, these guerrilla groups became the backbone of the human resistance. Operating in the shadows, using the urban landscape and ruins of destroyed cities to their advantage, the human rebels launched hit-and-run attacks, sabotaging key Axlian installations. The initial blows were small, destroying communications relays, disabling transport ships, and launching surprise strikes at Axlian ground units, but they were victories nonetheless. Even with their limited resources, the guerrilla resistance began to affect the Axlian forces. These small victories sent a message to the invaders. Humanity was not finished. As Axlian commanders began to realize that they were facing an enemy that refused to surrender, their confidence began to crack. The guerrilla tactics became more sophisticated, and local leaders in cities like New York, London, and Tokyo began to unite the surviving human forces into a more organized and coordinated resistance. Dr. Sophia Chen was among the first to see that humanity's only hope for survival was to adapt and learn from the Axlian technology that had so easily overwhelmed them. As the Taranth's invasion continued, the reverse engineering of the alien technology became a race against time. Earth's scientific community, despite the devastation, began working together in underground laboratories, eager to find any advantage they could. Dr. Chen, a brilliant scientist who had spent most of her career studying alien biology and astrophysics, was now faced with a new challenge, understanding how the Axlian war machines worked. The alien technology was far superior to anything humanity had developed, but it was not impenetrable. Through countless hours of research, trial and error, and collaboration, Dr. Chen and her team made significant breakthroughs. One of the most critical discoveries came when Dr. Chen's team analyzed the energy shields used by the Axlian ships. At first, humanity had no way of penetrating them. Every missile fired, every laser shot, simply bounced off the shields. But through reverse engineering, they discovered a flaw in the shield's frequency, something no one had anticipated. Dr. Chen's team developed a method of creating a disruptor pulse that could bypass the shields, disabling them long enough for human weapons to make a mark. Along with energy disruptors, humanity also began adapting the Axlians' propulsion systems, developing new engine technology that allowed human ships to travel at faster-than-light speeds. These advancements didn't make humanity's forces on par with the Axlian Empire, but they were a game-changer. For the first time, Earth's space fleet stood a chance against the Axlian warships. Dr. Chen's successes with reverse engineering began to ignite a fire of hope in humanity's heart. It was clear humanity was no longer helpless. They were starting to fight back on their own terms. With Dr. Chen's advancements and the increasing effectiveness of the guerrilla groups, General Noah Jansen saw an opportunity to organize the resistance into a cohesive military force. As the leader of Earth's remaining military forces, General Jansen had been through the worst of the war. He had seen his forces decimated, his cities in ruins, and his hopes for Earth's survival all but shattered. But as humanity adapted, he knew that it was time to shift tactics. He spent countless hours working with strategic planners and military leaders to develop a new set of counterattack strategies. This was no longer just a war of technological superiority. This was a war of guerrilla warfare and outsmarting the enemy. General Jansen understood that speed and surprise were key. With the reverse-engineered technology, humanity's forces were no longer bound by the same limitations they had before. They could move faster, strike harder, and exploit the Axlians' weaknesses. One of the most pivotal changes was using Earth's own environment to their advantage. The Axlian fleet had expected humanity to fight in a conventional, traditional manner, but they didn't anticipate how adaptable Earth's forces could be. Earth's fighters didn't rely on sheer firepower, they relied on smarts and strategy. General Jansen worked tirelessly to set up ambushes and decoys designed to confuse and disorient the Axlian forces. Underground networks of resistance fighters began launching precision strikes against the Axlian logistics and supply chains. The human military also learned to adapt the Axlians' own tactics against them. The Taranth Empire had used asymmetric warfare against Earth early in the invasion, and humanity now mirrored that approach. General Jansen created a new mobile resistance force capable of attacking Axlian military bases, communications hubs and supply stations before retreating into hidden locations to avoid detection. This new approach was proving successful. The Axlian Empire, once so confident, was beginning to face its first major setbacks. For the first time, the Axlian fleet started to take notice of Earth's resilience. The guerrilla groups, now better equipped and better trained, disrupted key Axlian operations, cutting off supply lines and weakening their grip on Earth. The tipping point came when General Jansen delivered a speech that would resonate across the entire planet. The resistance forces had gained some victories, but Earth's survival was still uncertain. Jansen's speech, broadcasted to every corner of Earth, was a call to arms, a rallying cry that brought humanity together. We are not the helpless beings the Axlian Empire thinks we are. We are humans, and we fight. We fight for our world, for our future, for the legacy we leave behind. This is our planet, and we will never bow down. His words were not just a strategy, they were a call to action. The human spirit was ignited. Families, scientists, engineers, and soldiers all came together, inspired by Jansen's leadership and the realization that humanity could win. As guerrilla fighters prepared for their next strikes, civilians rallied to supply the resistance with resources. Factories were converted to produce weapons, ammunition, and military vehicles. The rallying cry of "Never surrender" spread across Earth like wildfire. The speech was more than just words. It became the anthem of the resistance. Humanity was no longer passive. They were a unified force that would no longer be dismissed as weak or insignificant. They would fight for their world, and they would fight to win. The early stages of the war had been bleak for humanity. Earth had been overwhelmed by the sheer force of the Axlian Empire's attack. Their advanced technology had crippled Earth's defenses, and humanity was forced to adapt, hoping for a chance to strike back. Fortunately, the reverse engineering of Axlian technology by Dr. Sophia Chen and her team had yielded results that were nothing short of miraculous. While Earth's military technology was still far from matching the Axlian fleet, humanity had successfully hacked into and reprogrammed portions of the Axlian weaponry and shield systems. The disruptors that humanity had begun to deploy against the alien forces were improving, and their effectiveness in penetrating Axlian shields had grown stronger. The reversal of the Axlians' defensive technology provided the humans with a much-needed advantage. However, it wasn't just the reverse-engineered technology that was changing the tide, it was human ingenuity. The guerrilla tactics Earth's forces employed had begun to evolve. They were learning and adapting in ways that the Axlian Empire hadn't anticipated. The Axlian Empire believed humanity would rely on conventional tactics and standard military strategies, but they were wrong. Humans fought with resourcefulness and innovation, creating strategies and weapons that had never been seen before. One of humanity's first truly successful surprises came when a small group of rebels, armed with modified Axlian weapons, managed to infiltrate one of the Axlian warships. They had learned to use the enemy's own weapons against them, and with precision strikes they caused a critical failure in the warship's energy grid, rendering it defenseless. This unexpected strike was a turning point, a clear demonstration that human creativity and adaptability were forces the Axlian Empire could no longer ignore. While this was still a small victory in the grand scale of the war, it was a victory nonetheless, and it proved that Earth's resistance was not futile. The Taranth Empire could be beaten, not by sheer force, but by intelligence, strategy, and determination. The true breakthrough came when General Noah Jansen and his team coordinated an audacious plan that would catch the Axlian Empire off guard. The Axlian fleet had been striking relentlessly at Earth's cities and military bases, and it seemed like they were always one step ahead. But Jansen, a seasoned leader who had seen the worst of the invasion, had a plan that used not just brute force, but human ingenuity and their growing understanding of Axlian technology. Working alongside Dr. Chen, Jansen's forces began to implement the guerrilla tactics they had learned during the early days of the war. Humanity had learned the Axlian strategies, studied their weaknesses, and adapted. Earth's resistance forces, using the modified alien tech, initiated a coordinated strike against a key Axlian warship, one that had been causing significant damage to Earth's remaining defenses. In a highly risky operation, a small human fleet, using their stealth-modified ships, infiltrated the Axlian ship's perimeter, launching a surprise attack. The Axlian flagship had been too confident, and they did not anticipate that the humans had the capability to disable their ships. The attack was swift. An energy disruptor was deployed directly into the flagship's power core, creating a temporary blackout in the ship's main energy systems. For the first time since the invasion began, the Axlian Empire's flagship was vulnerable. The damage was significant, and while humanity did not have the resources to destroy the warship completely, they successfully crippled it and bought Earth a precious moment. The attack sent a message to the Axlian fleet. Humans were no longer the weak, defenseless species they had assumed them to be. This small victory sparked a wave of confidence across Earth's military and resistance fighters. They now knew they had something the Axlian Empire couldn't counter: resilience and adaptation. The successful strike on the Axlian warship proved that humanity could fight back, and that they could win even against an enemy with superior firepower and technology. It was a small victory, but a decisive one. Humanity was no longer in retreat. They were taking the fight to the Axlian Empire in ways they hadn't imagined. The Axlian commanders, once so confident in their ability to crush humanity, now found themselves questioning the efficacy of their strategies. They began to realize that Earth was not the easy conquest they had thought. This first major victory became a rallying point for Earth's resistance. News of the attack spread like wildfire, inspiring countless civilians and soldiers to take up arms and join the fight. Humanity was no longer a passive species. They had proven they could resist, that they could adapt, and that they could take the fight to the enemy. As General Jansen watched the human fleet return from the successful mission, he knew that this victory had been just the beginning. Earth was still outmatched and outgunned, but the momentum had shifted. Humanity's spirit was undaunted, and now they had the tools and the tactics to make the Axlian Empire pay. Jansen knew, though, that this victory was only one step in the long road ahead. The Taranth Empire was still a mighty foe, and the war was far from over. But Earth had sent a message: they were not going to surrender. They would fight, adapt, and win. General Jansen had been a leader who had once doubted humanity's ability to fight back. His first experiences in battle were ones of overwhelming loss as humanity's initial defense was utterly crushed. He had seen the despair in the eyes of his soldiers, heard their cries for mercy as their cities burned, and had felt the crushing weight of their inevitable defeat. But something had changed in Jansen. The resilience of humanity had begun to ignite within him. He had seen the sacrifice, the suffering, and the determination of the people he led, and it had fueled his own resolve. This victory had been his first real success against the Axlian Empire, and it gave him a new sense of purpose. No longer was he just fighting for survival, he was fighting for humanity's future, and that future was one where Earth's survival was not guaranteed. He had seen the power of the human spirit and realized that Earth wasn't just a victim of alien conquest. Earth could defend itself. Jansen's growth mirrored humanity's transformation from a defenseless species to one capable of resistance and victory. As he rallied his forces, he knew that victories like this would be the key to their ultimate success. But this was just the beginning. The Axlian Empire may have underestimated humanity once, but they would never make that mistake again. The Axlian Empire, stung by their first significant defeat, was not a force to be underestimated. The initial shock of humanity's unexpected victory ignited a fury within the Axlian ranks. Emperor Vornok, the ruthless ruler of the Axlian Empire, could not allow such an embarrassment to stand. For centuries, the Axlian fleet had been the terror of the galaxy, invincible and absolute in its superiority. To have their technology and tactics thwarted by a species they considered primitive was an affront to their empire. The retaliation came swiftly. The Axlian Empire sent out a massive counterattack, one far greater than anything humanity had yet faced. The Axlian fleet arrived in full force, this time with a fury and determination that was palpable. They launched a systematic strike, deploying advanced warships, plasma cannons, and energy barrages that tore through Earth's remaining defenses. A deep sense of dread settled over the planet as the Axlian fleet began its bombardment of major cities and military outposts once again. Unlike the initial assault, which had been a surprise attack, the Axlian Empire's retaliation was precise and brutal. The Axlian ships targeted key Earth installations that had survived their earlier attacks. They aimed to crush any hope humanity had of mounting a successful defense. General Jansen and Dr. Chen had worked tirelessly to reverse engineer Axlian technology, but the scale of the Axlian fleet's renewed attack quickly overwhelmed their efforts. The human resistance was stretched thin, fighting desperately against a foe that now came at them with unrelenting force. For every small victory humanity had won, the Axlian Empire came back stronger, their ships more advanced, and their strategies more calculated. Earth's military was once again forced to retreat in the face of such overwhelming power. Humanity had tasted victory, but it was still an underdog, fighting a battle it could not afford to lose. Despite the devastating counteroffensive, humanity did not falter. Even as entire cities were wiped off the map and Earth's military suffered heavy casualties, humanity's spirit remained unbroken. General Jansen knew this was the critical moment. Either Earth would succumb to the Axlian power, or they would rise again, this time stronger than before. In the face of near-total destruction, Earth's resilience began to shine through. The human spirit was not one to be easily crushed. The defeat from the earlier counterattacks didn't break their will. Instead, it sparked an unwavering determination to fight for the survival of their species. General Jansen, though fatigued and bruised from the battle, was resolute in his belief that humanity would not surrender. Dr. Sophia Chen, having witnessed the destruction of her reverse engineering efforts in the face of such overwhelming force, dedicated herself to finding new ways to improve Earth's defenses. The Axlian counterattack had proven the limitations of humanity's current technology, but it also showed that Earth's guerrilla tactics and human ingenuity could hold their own against even the most powerful of enemies. She worked alongside General Jansen and other scientific teams, trying to adapt Axlian technology to Earth's needs. New weapons were developed, focusing on disabling key Axlian warship components rather than trying to match their firepower. The human forces began to understand the intricacies of Axlian technology and used it to neutralize their advantages. Earth's resistance, although weaker than the Axlian Empire's might, grew stronger with each setback. Humanity was beginning to realize that they could take the fight to the Axlian Empire on their own terms. As Earth's forces regrouped, General Jansen called for a strategic shift. The time had come to move beyond just defending Earth and begin taking the fight to the Axlian Empire. Humanity could no longer rely solely on guerrilla tactics or small victories. They needed a coordinated strike, one that would leave the Axlian forces reeling. Working with Dr. Chen and the scientific teams, Jansen developed a new plan to exploit the Axlian fleet's weaknesses. Using their reverse-engineered technology, humanity launched a counter-offensive, targeting key command hubs, communication systems, and power sources. The goal was not to win by brute force, but to disrupt the Axlian Empire's ability to coordinate their forces, breaking them apart and giving humanity the upper hand. The tactical counterattack saw Earth's forces coordinating multiple strikes across Earth's atmosphere, space, and underground resistance bases. Humans, now more adept at using Axlian technology, launched surprise strikes against key Axlian positions. With energy disruptors and shield generators, humanity was able to cripple some of the Axlian warships, causing chaos in the enemy's ranks. The Axlian Empire, caught off guard by Earth's sudden resolve, began to question their assumptions about humanity's weakness. This counter-offensive allowed Earth's resistance to begin retaking territories, strategically targeting Axlian supply lines and weakening their hold over Earth. As Axlian commanders began to notice the shift in momentum, they realized that the humans were no longer the helpless victims they had once thought them to be. Earth was becoming a thorn in the side of the Axlian Empire. The turning point of this counter-offensive came when Earth's forces engaged the Axlian fleet near the Moon in a key battle. The Axlian Empire, unable to fully anticipate humanity's resilience and tactical improvements, found themselves outmatched in this engagement. General Jansen led his forces, strategically utilizing Earth's newfound advantage with reverse-engineered tech to create a deceptive trap that allowed his forces to strike the Axlian fleet at its weakest point. The battle was hard-fought and costly, but the human resistance was victorious. General Jansen's strategy had worked. He had successfully disabled key Axlian warships and disrupted their fleet's command system, causing confusion and forcing the Axlian ships to retreat. This victory was crucial. It was the first major tactical win Earth had achieved against the Axlian Empire. The battle near the Moon was a defining moment in the war. It was a turning point that showed both humanity and the Axlian Empire that Earth would not give up. In the heat of battle, the Axlian fleet fell back. General Jansen delivered an emotional speech to his forces. They thought we were weak. They thought we were nothing more than ants to crush beneath their boot. But today we show them that Earth will not go quietly into the night. We will fight. We will stand. They thought we were helpless, but we've only just begun. After months of desperate fighting, when it seemed as if the Axlian Empire would overwhelm Earth, something unexpected happened. A rebel faction, previously unknown to humanity, made contact. These were alien beings who had been oppressed by the Axlian Empire for centuries, forced to endure years of subjugation under the Empire's iron fist. Their species, known as the Vormari, had been conquered by the Axlian Empire long before. Earth even made contact with the galactic community. The Vormari, though technologically inferior to the Axlian Empire, had kept their spirits alive and their resistance movement strong. They had spent years in the shadows, gathering intelligence on the Axlian Empire's movements and weaknesses. When they saw Earth's growing defiance, they recognized a kindred spirit. The Vormari sent a clandestine transmission offering their help to humanity. Their assistance was more than just logistical support. It was the knowledge and resources. Earth needed to tip the scales in its favor. At first, humanity was skeptical. The Axlian Empire had claimed to be the ultimate power in the galaxy, and no one had expected any species, let alone one so seemingly oppressed, to challenge their reign. But as Dr. Sophia Chen and General Jansen cautiously evaluated the offer, it became clear that the Vormari were genuine and had information that could help humanity in ways they had not anticipated. The Vormari possessed an intimate knowledge of the Axlian fleet, including strategies and weak points that had long been overlooked by Earth's military planners. In exchange for sanctuary on Earth and the promise of an alliance, the Vormari offered their most valuable asset, technology. They had long been studying Axlian machinery from the inside, capturing their ships, studying their weapons, and learning how to disrupt their advanced systems. They had blueprints of Axlian tech, including their shield technology, propulsion, systems, and weaponry. This knowledge was now at Earth's disposal, and it gave humanity the leverage they needed to counterattack on a larger scale. The Vormari sent a delegation to Earth, meeting in secret locations with Dr. Chen and military leaders to discuss how they could collaborate. Over the course of weeks, Earth's scientists and engineers worked tirelessly alongside the Vormari to exchange knowledge. The collaboration between the two species quickly grew into a strong bond of trust and shared goals. Freedom from the Axlian Empire. Dr. Chen played a central role in facilitating the cooperation between humanity and the Vormari. As one of the world's foremost scientists in the study of alien technology, she was uniquely positioned to bridge the gap between Earth and its new allies. The Vormari brought critical knowledge of the Axlian Empire's weaknesses, which humanity had been unable to exploit until now. Dr. Chen worked closely with Vormari scientists, learning how to adapt and refine the technology Earth had previously reverse-engineered from the Axlian fleet. She was particularly intrigued by the Vormari's ability to disrupt Axlian shields. Earth's earlier successes had been limited by their inability to penetrate the Axlian shields effectively. The Vormari tech, however, offered a new approach, a method of bypassing the shields entirely by creating localized energy surges that could temporarily disable the enemy's defenses. With this new knowledge, humanity's military forces were able to modify their weaponry and tactics, making them far more effective against the Axlian fleet. Humanity's spacecraft were retrofitted with new, disruptor tech, allowing them to attack Axlian ships with greater precision and efficiency. The Vormari fleet also provided Earth with stealth technology, allowing their ships to sneak past Axlian. patrols and launch surprise attacks at key targets. This collaboration extended beyond just technology. The Vormari shared their tactical expertise, training Earth's forces in advanced combat and infiltration techniques. General Jansen and his team learned how to operate with the stealth tactics the Vormari had perfected during their long struggle against the Axlian Empire. Earth's military began to adapt, no longer relying solely on brute force, but integrating tactical strikes and hit-and-run missions against Axlian targets. As Earth's resistance grew stronger, so did the Vormari's resolve. They had been oppressed for so long, but the fight alongside humanity began to reignite their sense of purpose. The joint efforts created a strong alliance, one that sent a clear message to the Axlian Empire. Humanity was not alone, and the galaxy was no longer their dominion. The Axlian Empire, accustomed to absolute dominance, had initially dismissed Earth as an insignificant threat. However, after the unexpected resistance and alliances that humanity had forged, the Axlian leadership began to reassess their position. The once proud empire, which had brushed Earth off as a primitive species, now found itself facing a formidable force. The Vormari alliance turned the tide in favor of humanity, and the galactic balance of power began to shift. The Axlian Empire's belief that they could crush humanity with ease started to crumble. Their forces were disrupted, disorganized, and increasingly vulnerable to the newly developed human tactics and weaponry. The Axlian commanders, once confident in their superiority, now had to contend with a force that had adapted, learned, and was now fighting back with precision. Humanity's victory was not just about technology, it was about unity and resourcefulness. The Axlian Empire underestimated the power of a united human race and the resolve of those who refused to be subjugated. What had once seemed like a hopeless fight was now becoming a galactic symbol of resistance. Other oppressed species, watching the progress of Earth and the Vormari alliance, began to question their own positions under the Axlian Empire's rule. The galaxy, once dominated by the Axlian Empire, began to see humanity in a new light. No longer viewed as an insignificant species, Earth became the symbol of resilience and defiance. The Axlian Empire's power was being chipped away by the very species they had deemed unworthy of notice. It was no longer a matter of whether Earth would survive. It was now a matter of how long the Axlian Empire could hold on to its dominance. In the midst of this growing power shift, General Jansen stood firm, realizing that the battle was far from over. But with the Vormari alliance and humanity's growing strength, Earth now had the momentum. It wasn't just the Axlian Empire that had underestimated humanity, it was the galaxy at large. Humanity was no longer a footnote in the stars, they were a force to be reckoned with. After months of fighting back with limited victories, humanity now stood on the brink of a final confrontation that would determine the fate of Earth and its future in the galaxy. General Noah Jansen, battle-worn but resolute, had gathered his forces and those of the Vormari, and together they prepared for an assault like no other. It was to be the final push, the last stand that would either result in humanity's survival or complete annihilation by the Axlian Empire. The Axlian Empire, once confident of their domination over Earth, was now reeling from the mounting resistance. The previous strikes, led by General Jansen and Dr. Chen, had struck fear into the hearts of the Axlian commanders. Their fleet was increasingly vulnerable, with their advanced warships sustaining damage they hadn't anticipated. Earth's forces, bolstered by Vormari tactics and reverse-engineered technology, now had the capability to strike at the heart of the Axlian Empire. General Jansen, working alongside Dr. Sophia Chen and the Vormari leadership, laid out the final plan. The objective was clear: to destroy the Axlian flagship, sever their command structure, and cripple the Empire once and for all. The Axlian flagship, where Emperor Vornok resided, was the source of their military coordination and the linchpin of their empire's might. If humanity could infiltrate and sabotage the flagship's command center, they would deal a devastating blow to the Axlian fleet's ability to respond effectively. Jansen's team would infiltrate the flagship using covert tactics and humanity's newly developed technology. They would need to bypass the Axlians' extensive defense systems, which were thought to be impenetrable. It was a mission fraught with risk, but Jansen was determined to end this war. With the Axlian fleet still dominating Earth's skies, there was no time to waste. Earth's forces began assembling their final strike teams, preparing their best ships and outfitting them with the latest alien tech. The goal wasn't just to survive, it was to destroy the Axlian Empire's control and ensure Earth's safety for generations to come. For Jansen, the stakes had never been higher. If this mission succeeded, it would mark the end of the Axlian Empire's rule over Earth and the galaxy. The plan was risky. General Jansen, in his endless pursuit of victory for Earth, understood the cost. His final assault on the Axlian flagship, a targeted mission to cripple their command center, required full commitment, and it wasn't just the Axlian forces who would be risking their lives. This was a high-stakes mission, and humanity's forces, fueled by hope, determination, and the will to survive, launched their assault in a desperate bid to turn the tide of the war. The Axlian flagship, the pride of the Empire, was an imposing fortress surrounded by swarms of alien warships and advanced technology. The human fleet's first attempt at a direct strike had been disastrous, but now they had alien tech and battle-hardened troops ready for anything. The Axlian defenses were strong, but humanity had adapted. General Jansen coordinated the assault, which involved a two-pronged attack. One group would launch a direct assault on the flagship's shields and weapon systems, while another would infiltrate the flagship's inner corridors. Their mission: sabotage the Axlian command center, which held the key to the entire Empire's control over their forces. The human fleet advanced cautiously, using stealth technology to avoid detection. Once in range, the strike teams unleashed a torrent of firepower on the Axlian fleet, drawing their attention away from the flagship. Meanwhile, a small team led by General Jansen and Captain Maya Hayes infiltrated the flagship's defenses, working to disable its energy core and communication systems. The battle around the flagship intensified as human forces and Axlian soldiers clashed in close quarters. Ships exploded and human casualties mounted, but the momentum was beginning to shift. The human forces fighting for their homeworld pushed the Axlian fleet back despite the overwhelming odds. With each strike, each explosive attack, the Axlian Empire's grip on the galaxy began to loosen. In the heat of battle, General Jansen knew that the success of the mission would come at a price. The Axlian flagship was heavily fortified, and Earth's forces were outnumbered and outgunned. As the flagship's energy core began to falter, the mission required one final sacrifice, the ultimate act of bravery to ensure humanity's survival. Jansen's team had reached the heart of the Axlian flagship, but with Axlian reinforcements closing in, the mission was far from over. As they planted the disruptors to disable the Axlian control systems, General Jansen realized that the only way to complete the mission was to remain behind and detonate the final charge to destroy the command center. Captain Maya Hayes, who had served beside Jansen throughout the war, begged him to reconsider. But Jansen, with a resolute heart, knew that the future of humanity depended on his sacrifice. The final blow to the Axlian Empire had to come from within the heart of their command, and Jansen had become the symbol of humanity's will to never back down. In a final act of bravery, General Jansen stayed behind to ensure the mission's success while his team escaped. The Axlian flagship exploded in a blinding flash, marking the death of the Axlian Empire's leadership. His sacrifice ensured that humanity's victory would never be forgotten. The destruction of the Axlian flagship delivered a devastating blow to the Axlian Empire. With the command center incapacitated, the remaining Axlian forces were thrown into chaos. Earth's forces, though battered and scarred, capitalized on the momentum, striking hard and finishing the fight. Humanity's victory against a far superior force was a momentous occasion, one that would go down in galactic history. The Axlian Empire, once thought to be unstoppable, was now in ruins. Earth had not only survived, but had dealt a blow to an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. General Jansen's ultimate sacrifice became a symbol of the human spirit and the determination to never give up, no matter the odds. With the Axlian forces in retreat, humanity stood tall, victorious. Earth had proven to the galaxy that no matter how powerful an empire was, humanity's resolve, intelligence, and unity could overcome any challenge. The Taranth Empire, who had long ruled the galaxy, now found themselves facing a new reality. Humanity had shown that it was no longer a weak, insignificant species. It was now a force to be reckoned with. With the Axlian Empire shattered and its forces retreating, Earth's role in the galaxy was forever changed. Humanity had proven itself, capable of standing toe-to-toe with one of the most powerful empires the galaxy had ever known. No longer could humanity be dismissed as an insignificant species. Earth had not only survived the invasion, but had also defeated the very empire that sought to conquer it. The Axlian Empire's fall had resonated across the galaxy, and Earth's actions became a galactic milestone, a symbol of resilience, unity, and indomitable spirit. Humanity's reputation shifted dramatically. The once isolated and vulnerable planet was now a new force in the galaxy. Earth's survival was no longer just an anomaly, it was a testament to the human will, and other species began to take notice. Diplomatic emissaries from neighboring galactic empires arrived on Earth's doorstep, eager to forge alliances. No longer was Earth the backwater planet it once had been. Earth's forces, having just won a galactic war, were now seen as key players in the future balance of power. General Noah Jansen, still reeling from the sacrifices of war but resolute in his leadership, became Earth's ambassador in the galactic community. Under his leadership, Earth began to negotiate with new allies and form strategic alliances with other species that had been oppressed by the Axlian Empire. These alliances helped Earth to secure its borders, expand its influence, and maintain a position of strength in a galaxy that had once seen humanity as nothing more than an insignificant world. Earth's role in the galactic community was no longer just that of a survivor. Humanity was becoming a leading power, respected and feared for its resilience and ability to adapt and fight back. In the wake of their victory, humanity's future looked brighter than ever. With the Axlian Empire's fall, Earth was no longer constrained by fear and uncertainty. Humanity now had the resources and the will to explore the stars. Dr. Sophia Chen, now hailed as one of humanity's greatest scientific minds, began leading expeditions to new star systems. The technological advancements developed during the war had opened the door to interstellar travel far beyond what humanity had previously dreamed possible. The first of these explorations took humanity to a new star system, one that had been previously untouched by galactic powers. Earth's ships, equipped with alien technology and new propulsion systems, navigated the vast distances between the stars with ease. As Earth sent out exploratory missions, it also began to establish a presence in these new frontiers, opening embassies and forming alliances with newly discovered species that had also suffered under the Axlian rule. Humanity, once isolated and naive, now found itself as an important player in the galactic stage. The alliances humanity began to form were multifaceted. Humanity not only sought diplomatic relationships but also trade and military pacts with other species. Earth's technological superiority, now a well-established fact, allowed humanity to offer aid and support to those who had suffered under the Axlian Empire. Newfound allies, grateful for humanity's victory, offered their resources, and together they built a more peaceful galaxy. As humanity expanded its reach across the galaxy, the first human colonies were established on planets once thought unreachable. Earth, now a leader, was forging a new future, one of exploration, peace, and prosperity. However, with victory came the realization that the galaxy was a much more dangerous place than humanity had ever imagined. The fall of the Axlian Empire had opened the door for new challenges, and many of the galactic powers that had previously feared the Axlian Empire now began to turn their eyes on Earth. The Zathar Empire, a mysterious and ruthless empire, from the outer rim began to make their presence known in nearby systems. The Zathar had observed Earth's rise and had grown intrigued and threatened by humanity's newfound strength. With the Axlian Empire gone, the Zathar Empire viewed Earth as a rival that could potentially threaten their dominance. The Zathar were known for their advanced weaponry and ruthless tactics. They had conquered several planets in the outer edges of the galaxy, and their strategic expansion was a growing concern. General Jansen, though weary from the Axlian war, knew that humanity's vigilance was more critical than ever. Earth was no longer a vulnerable planet, but it still had much to learn about the broader galactic landscape. Captain Maya Hayes, who had emerged as a prominent leader during the war, was appointed to lead a diplomatic mission to negotiate with the Zathar Empire. The task was monumental, as the Zathar were notoriously hostile and uncompromising. Earth's place in the galaxy was still fragile, and new threats could jeopardize everything they had fought for. Humanity now had to forge alliances not just for peace, but for the survival of their new galactic future. Despite the looming threats, humanity's victory over the Axlian Empire had already changed the galaxy's perspective on Earth. Earth had earned its place among the stars, not just by surviving, but by fighting back and defeating one of the most powerful empires in galactic history. The Axlian Empire's defeat had become a symbol of hope, a story that would inspire oppressed species for centuries to come. The future of Earth was no longer uncertain. The Axlian Empire's defeat had proven that humanity was not just a footnote in the galaxy, but a force to be reckoned with. Earth had fought back, adapted, and survived, and it was now ready to thrive. Humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer in question. It was a beacon of strength, unity, and hope for all species who yearned for freedom. As humanity began its exploration of the stars, new alliances were forged, and the peace they worked toward was becoming more achievable. But Earth's resilience had already demonstrated that no matter what challenges lay ahead, humanity was no longer the weak species the galaxy once believed it to be. They were a new force, ready to face whatever the future held. The Zathar Empire and other potential threats loomed large, but humanity had proven something that would echo through the galaxy for ages to come. Earth would never surrender.